So this is not something that I like talking about or that I feel comfortable sharing, to be honest, and I will talk more about why later in this video, but here we go. So for those of us who have been following the restrictions during this past year and a half and hence kept large amounts of time isolated to different extents, re-entering into the world as things are slowly opening up again can feel a bit scary. It does to me at least. And it's not just being in social situations that feels a bit difficult. It's the before, it's the anticipation, like when we're expecting a call or when we know that we are about to go somewhere. I don't know about you, I don't want to get graphic, but my stomach does not handle that very well. And if anyone has any advice on how to handle the I'm about to have a social interaction nerves, feel free to share that in the comments. And I also just feel like social interactions are kind of draining me more than usual. Even just responding to texts or calls feels like a task, like a lot of people. Since working from home, I've had lots of Zoom calls, and to be honest, at the end of those calls, I almost always just lay down straight on my back on my bed or on the floor for a moment to recharge. It just feels exhausting. I must say, it is comforting knowing that this feeling of social awkwardness is somewhat of a collective experience, given that, we've all been through the same thing, broadly speaking. Now, it's not that I was this social butterfly before, but as much as I enjoy my own company, I do also enjoy going out from time to time, especially during this time of the year. I kind of feel like I want to be somewhere all the time. I like seeing new places and I love trying out new restaurants and meeting people. Oh, and I also have this puppy now who needs plenty of socialization. I know it's rather popular to hate small talk, and I'm generally not a fan of it either if it's in a situation where it feels forced, like when you are at an event you don't even really want to be at and you're standing there with a group of people you don't know, chatting about who knows who and how they know each other and what their plans for the holidays are, when really none of it really interests you. But I actually enjoy small talk when it comes naturally, like having a conversation with the waiter at a restaurant or with your neighbors. Finding things in common with people in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect is always nice, and you never know what could come out of that. What I do know is that I don't want to feel awkward when interactions do occur. No one does. And I don't want fear or nerves to take the joy out of what could have been a pleasant experience. Now, the reason I use the word awkward and not anxiety is because I've dealt with social anxiety before, and it definitely is not a term that I would use lightly. I know how much it can control a person's life, where you avoid social interactions at all costs, and it's a medical condition. However, social awkwardness is not. So here is what it feels like to me. So yes, I do feel overly self-cautious. I tend to overthink my words, and in particular my body language, which are all symptoms of what can be recognized in a socially anxious person. But as for being avoidant, I actually feel the opposite, almost. See, although I get this yucky feeling in my body whenever I'm faced with a social situation, well, not all social situations, but many of them, I actually feel excited to face that feeling and to overcome it. And I guess in a sense, I am embracing this feeling of awkwardness, and I don't want that to sound like I'm romanticizing it or turning it into something quirky. So let me explain. After everything that has happened this year, specifically in my life personally, much of what I used to regard as a problem now seem trivial to me. I simply don't really care if I stumble on my words, or if I turn a bit red, or if I'm having an awkward silence with a stranger. or if I come across as weird. You know, we're all just people. We all get awkward and uncomfortable at times, and we're all just trying to figure this life thing out. And every one of us has baggage and a life and a story, one that most other people know nothing about. And now, again, this is not me invalidating anyone's feelings or not acknowledging how seriously being socially awkward or anxious can affect a person's life, but our experiences and the things that we go through in life, it shapes our perception, our outlook on things, and this is just mine now. I guess the thing with fear and anxiety is that it makes us feel restricted, like we are captives of our own minds and our body and perhaps the world. We just don't feel free. So how am I dealing with this? Like I said, things are only now, starting to slowly go back to normal, and I'm still figuring out how I feel about that. And so for that reason, I don't really have a lot of advice, but I do still want this video to be helpful. So I thought I would share some things that I keep in mind. I got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So the worst case scenario of a social interaction typically will not be detrimental to your life by any stretch of the imagination. I'm facing it. My desire for, potentially interesting conversations with interesting people and curiosity about where those could lead is, for me, stronger than any fear that I have. So I guess finding why it is important for you to overcome this awkwardness or fear that you may have. I'm genuinely interested in people and in what they have to say. I don't just act like I am, and that alone makes a huge difference. It makes me more present, more focused on the person rather than on myself. I don't go around telling people or myself that I'm socially awkward, except I guess I'm saying it now to thousands of people because I think talking about it can be helpful to someone. But I do believe in the power of words, and I've talked about this plenty. Once you tell yourself something enough times, even if you tell yourself as a joke, I've come to learn, that thing will start to become the starting point of how you engage with the world. And we may start using that as a shield. So you may say something like, oh, I simply cannot go to X or do X because I'm socially awkward, and that's that. It is fully possible to acknowledge something, a feeling or a state, without making it part of your identity. And one way that I do that is that I try to use the words I feel rather than I am. So in this case, I feel awkward rather than I am awkward. Or if I'm having a bad day, I don't stand and look myself in the mirror saying, I'm so hopeless. I say, I feel hopeless right now. Finally, in Swedish, we say det blir som det blir, which if you translate it verbatim means it will be what it will be, which I guess would be the equivalent of saying it is what it is, or whatever happens, happens. And it's a way of, I guess, accepting things as they turn out. And I find that to be helpful. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't even know if that's an actual saying. I know there is a song called Det blir som det blir. I don't know. It's something that I tend to say. And now I fully acknowledge that some people deal with social awkwardness their whole life, and that this may be a much more complicated issue for them. For others, like myself, it looks different, and that's fine. There is space for everyone's story here on the Lana Blakely channel, and they're all welcome to look as different as they would like. Alright, thank you all so much for showing up here today. Now, I obviously do want to know how you feel about things opening up again. Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling anxious? Are you just indifferent? And what is the situation like in your country? Do you miss socializing, or would you be perfectly fine with quarantine continuing for another decade? And of course, if you have any advice on what we just talked about that could potentially help someone, don't forget to drop that in the comment section. And as always, I will see you there.